Thank you everyone for coming to this evening of Let's Talk About Sex with the Wolfer. I'm of course Tulani, and I am thrilled to welcome Kit Richardson and Lora DiCarlo. They are here to speak with us about all things related to sex, health, wellness, sex toys, which I think that we can all agree that they're not really for fooling around with, but maybe for playing around with, depending on how you talk about your bedroom activities or your not bedroom activities, your activities outside of the bedroom that are still sexy times, which I'm a big fan of. So first and foremost, I'm going to introduce Lora. And if you all are not aware, we have a wonderful partnership with her company, which is much lauded and was actually awarded one of the premier prizes at CES, which is one of our big tech conferences here in the US. And there was a little bit of controversy around that, which I'll let her explain, but we have a wonderful agreement with them. And if you log on to the Wolfer app, you will see Oze. It should be pinned in the top of our website section so you can learn more about her devices. But I also encourage you to visit her website because it has a wealth of information about sexual health, about topics ranging from, ethical pornography to issues surrounding, vaginal atrophy and wellness. So definitely navigate over there when you have a chance to check that out. And then Kit is going to also be talking to us. She is, as I mentioned before, a sex health expert, but she has a remarkable background that I think you'll all be thrilled to hear a lot about. And so I will now turn it over to both of them.
Hello. Hi, I'm Lora DiCarlo, and yeah, I started the company about 3 years ago, October of 2017, and it was because I had this mind-boggling, mind-blowing orgasm that literally rocked my happy ass off the side of my bed, and I was going through this time where I was just becoming kind of sexually woke, and I was dating this partner who was like, I was like, all right, how'd you do that? Because I want to know how to do that. And I want to know how to do that by myself. And I'm laying on the floor with one leg hitched up on the bed and my back on the tile, just like after having this, like, it kind of felt like a really orgasmic seizure. Just thinking that was really powerful. I want that. And I want to be able to do that myself. And I was actually pre-med at Portland State at the time, and working for a number of different physicians in the city, going to night school, on track to become an orthopedic surgeon. And I started looking for the product that could actually help me recreate that experience. And I wanted something that was hands-free. I wanted something that could actually conform to my anatomy, because I was looking for these products and nothing actually just fit me. Everything was like, it just didn't quite work. Like, it was almost like somebody that didn't know anything about my anatomy was making all these products. Like,
you don't say.
Really? So, and then I wanted something that actually felt like a human partner. I wanted to switch that out for vibration. I wanted that kind of come hither motion over the top of the G-spot, or actually more appropriately named the CUV complex, the clitoro-urethral vaginal complex. The G-spot is, debated whether it's a myth or not, but the fact is there is a clitoro-urethral vaginal complex that is really, really mind-blowing if you stimulate it just the right way. And I wanted that experience, and I was looking for the product that would do that, and it didn't exist. And I couldn't figure out, like, why. Like, I had this great product. So I started looking for research that would provide the data to be able to create a product like that. So I started looking in medical journals. I started looking in medical texts. The data didn't exist either. At this point, I'm a little bit unnerved. Why doesn't it exist? Why do we know everything there is to know about hard-ons, but we don't know shit about the clitoris? That's not okay with me. So I literally started asking people about it. I started asking people, where is your clitoris in location, like in relation to your vaginal canal? Where is your fabled G-spot?
Right.
How do you like to masturbate? Have you had this experience before? And I understood that, like, my experience was that everybody had the exact same response. First, they were embarrassed and they were awkward, and then they would get excited because they don't get to talk about it ever with anyone, and they finally get to talk about it with somebody. And then secondly, I would ask them for this information, and nearly no one actually had like the self-knowledge and had done enough self-exploration to really know where those pleasure points were accurately. And I had to do a lot of teaching. And third, obviously everybody wants to know, why are you asking this? This is kind of awkward and weird. And I would tell them, I have this experience. It was a blended orgasm where you stimulate the CUV complex and the clitoris on the outside, and you end up with this really mind-bending orgasm. And of course, everyone was like, I want that. Can I have it? When is it ready? Are you making a thing? Can I have it? And I was like,
Right.
I don't even know what I'm doing yet. And it took about 2 years and talking to 200 different people, getting that data from all these people. And I finally realized there is a need in the market for this. So that's when I launched the company. And I ended up kicking off a industry-sponsored research program with Oregon State University, who happens to be the top 4 robotics graduate program in the country. And about 9 months later, because it's my baby, I ended up with OSE. We ended up with 5 different patents and a prototype that we applied for the Consumer Electronics Show for 2019. And we're a tiny little women-led engineering team with queer folks, trans folks, and very few men at the time. And we're thinking, oh my God, we're never going to get this award, but we're going to try. Like, we might as well try. Like, we definitely know what we're doing. And then we got the award. And I lost my mind. I ended up having to go searching for new funding. We ended up having to hire a whole marketing team and started looking into how do we pitch this? How do we get into PR? And then a month later, they sent us an email that they're taking our award away. Because
I remember that. That was insane. Okay, yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay. They called it profane, immoral, and obscene. And all I could think was, I'm sorry, but how is this profane? How is my pussy
Not
profane?
only that,
this is ridiculous. And
but I think it would help to explain a little bit. CES has a history of having robotics that pleasure men. So it's not like this is something unheard of.
This kills me. They had a robot that looked like a Barbie doll bimbo. You could change your hair, you could change your face, you could change your accent. She would tell you how great you are. She had nothing but head and tits, and she'd give you blowjobs. And that gave several interviews on the floor at the Consumer Electronics Show in 2017. In 2017 and 2018, they didn't have one single female keynote speaker at the entire show. This is a show it's an international show that has over 200,000 attendees, almost 5,000 exhibitors, and not one female keynote speaker. Not only that, but they had a VR porn company for men that you could go up, put on a VR headset, and they actually asked a friend of mine that went up and put on a headset, and they said, do you want to have the male experience or the female perspective? And she was like, ooh, I want to try the female perspective. So what did she see? 2 chicks getting it on.
Yeah.
Makes sense, right? So we called them out for being completely biased and for being capricious and arbitrary, and they tried to ignore us. Don't ever tell me no, bitch.
Well, so, if anyone's not seen you guys, I mean, the flurry of news that came out of this single event was it was like an apocalypse happened at CES, because you had 2 camps that formed the, hand-wringing, extreme, oh no, this is so terrible. How dare women actually be interested in their own pleasure, right, and demonstrate that in a public way. And then you had the other camp, which, were the bra, we were the bra-burning feminist crones who, wanted to corrupt all of society. But at the heart of this, I think the thing that really, is so interesting is here you are, a woman in the tech sphere, which is notoriously anti-women. You come with this revolutionary device, product, robotic, and you win. So, let's acknowledge, hats off. And also thank you, because we were joking about this in another Zoom, but if you're not worshiping the phallus, you're like an enemy of the state in this country. So thank you for the insurrection.
Right? I even sent them, it was very, very plain about it. I sent them an email straight to their president and said, this is not a good time for you to be overly patriarchal. This is not going to go well for you. Please reconsider. And they just tried to keep us quiet and thought that they would sweep us under the rug. And that's actually when we released all of this information to the press the day before Consumer Electronics Show went live in January 2019. And you did not read anything in the press that had anything to do with CES if it didn't have something to do with Lora DiCarlo that year. It was mind-boggling. And like I said, this was a team of six or seven people at the time. We're tiny. I had just gotten my first rounds of funding, and we'd barely gotten off the ground, and suddenly it was like trying to drink from a fire hose. So what happened though is because we got so much press, people were so supportive and were just absolutely up in arms. I ended up becoming a motivational speaker overnight. I was traveling all over the world. I was speaking at Forbes in Israel, TechCrunch, Disrupt, you name it, I was there. And suddenly I get an email from Gary Shapiro, the president of the Consumer Technology Association that runs CES. And it says, "Can we talk?" I was like, "Sure, let's do that." So we sit down, and the first thing he says is, "I owe you a big apology. We should have never taken that award away." And I was like, "Is that because you made a boo-boo and because you want that public mea culpa? Or is it because you really understand that what you did was wrong and that there is nothing wrong with female sexuality and we are completely worthy of innovation?"
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And, yeah.
Yeah. I'm ecstatic about it because I'm cheerleading. I disclosed to you, and I'm going to let the rest of the group know, I actually pre-ordered the 2.0 version, and I'm really excited for it because, and this is something that I think you and Kit can talk to a little bit more. It took me until I was in my 40s to actually purchase my first vibrator. And may I say that it was a terrifying experience, not only purchasing it, because there's so much shame around it, and also just ignorance. Like here I've been living in this body my entire life, and I don't know really how it works. And so I had to have a girlfriend go with me, and we went to a place out here in LA called the Pleasure Chest. And I mean, I was sweating and furtive and, like just terrified as I was going in there. And then, and I sprung for the big, what I thought was the big deal at the time. And we'll talk more about, what happened later. But then I went to try and get a second one because, they're like, "Oh, you can't just have one, you need to have two." Well, the second one I got, it was like, it's like trying to sit on a jumbo jet when it lands. It's terrifying, it's loud, it's just a horrible, horrible experience. So that, went in the garbage. But so I'm particularly grateful to you because I didn't want to injure myself, and I certainly didn't want to scare my pets away or my neighbors.
Oh my God. Okay, so I want to say this just a little bit out into left field because you're like my first vibrator experience. I didn't even buy my first vibrator. I was in my late 20s, and I went to I lived in Portland, right? So we do everything weird, and there's a ton of strip clubs everywhere. So of course, it's like Christmas, and like my friends are like, "Let's go to this it's like a game show type themed Christmas party at a strip club." And I was like, "That sounds like a great idea." And we go,
I'm so there.
I'm like a little terrified. I'm like, okay, this is also like, I also kind of love this shit. This is great. And of course, who ends up on stage at the fucking game show? This girl. And I'm sitting up on stage and I win. I win the first prize. Guess what the fucking first prize is? It is a set of anal beads as big as my arm.
Well, hello and welcome.
And I'm sitting next to a guy that won a pink dildo and a jar of salsa. And he's like, "Do you want to trade?" And I'm like,
"Yeah."
And you're like, not even, you.
Oh God! Now I'm gonna have a hot flash.
Anyway, yeah. Fast forward, I'm talking to the CTO. We actually convinced them. We talked to them and we say, "Look, you have an opportunity to actually start embracing this very forward-thinking agenda. Do it. It is in your best interest." And they actually said, like, "We want to. We just don't know how." And I said, "Hey, guess what? You've got a guide. Yeah. Let us help you. Help me help you." And so we actually sat down with them and helped them rewrite their policies. And guess what? Now they allow sex tech at their show. And we believe that if it's done respectfully, if it's done tastefully, if it really is truly solving problems and it really is innovative and it's not demoralizing human bodies or objectifying bodies, It
Yeah.
should be allowed at the show. And that's exactly what happened. So this year, and they're going to be allowing it again. So we're really excited. Hopefully I'll be able to be a speaker there again this next year. But I hope that they continue to trend in that direction, because this is the kind of, let's bring this taboo conversation out into the open and normalize it for our youth too. They are
Absolutely.
so stigmatized. They are so afraid to talk. And this is why we have these conversations with women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. I can't tell you how many people I talk to on a daily basis who are ashamed of their bodies for no reason other than the fact that that's just what they were brought up with.
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, not for nothing, there's a lot of money to be made in this. I mean, we're completely underserved demographic in general when it comes to all of that. And obviously, you know, it's not just men who are watching pornography, who are using sex toys, who are enjoying sex, because, you know, we're a good percentage of the population, therefore we should be enjoying it too. And also what I think is really interesting about your product is that it is so women focused. So it's not about replacing a male body part in any way. It's about bringing pleasure to women for their pleasure exclusively. And I think that that's something, you know, that's important to talk about. But let me bring Kit into this. So Kit, let us know where you came from, because it's so crazy. I love it.
Hello, everybody. So I come with a weird background. I started off working as a conflict mediator and mediation specialist, you could say, with the United Nations. And I was over in the Middle East and in the Mediterranean, working mostly with Cyprus, Greece, and Turkey, and then in Jordan and Israel, and dealing with Syrian conflict as well. So my background is political science. I had always been interested in sexuality and whatnot. I guess, you know, I was extremely infatuated with Jack the Ripper as like an 11-year-old. And I remember I was almost kicked out of school because I did a book report that was like a 60-page PowerPoint on Jack the Ripper and like all the prostitutes that he had slashed. And they're like, something's wrong with this child, get her out.
I did not know this about you.
But, you know, my mother was very encouraging. So she was like, all right, let's go to London. We'll go on the Jack the Ripper tour. Let's talk about sex workers, you know. So even as a child, I was always interested in bodies and autonomy and agency and sexuality. So I just ended up at the UN, and I kind of started working more on conflict. And what got me hired at the UN was talking about how BDSM and kink can be used in conflict resolution, because it's talking about boundaries and limits and communication. And I think that was the first time that they had even talked about like being gagged or blindfolded. And, you know, I blindfolded with the permission, the person who interviewed me, and I was like, you have to trust me. Do you trust me? And it was kind of taking them, you know, walking them through the hallway. And they're like, okay, we get it, you know, because I didn't have much experience other than like model UN during college and stuff like that. And they were convinced. And so I went to the UN. But while I was illegally in Israel, I saw a documentary that had been filmed in Tel Aviv called Would You Have Sex with an Arab? And the director had gone to different places in Tel Aviv, clubs, bars, and asked Arabs and Jews if they would have sex with one another, if they've been in love with the other person. And, you know, the answers varied. It was like, no, this is my sworn enemy. They don't exist. I don't want to be with them, to, yeah, love is love. Passion is passion. It knows no boundaries. And I kind of, you know, was taken back to my 11-year-old self, and I was like, oh, sexuality means so much. And sex. So I started to understand that, sex is a part of conflict, both fueling it and can also, oh gosh,
it resolves it. Well, I mean,
resolve conflict.
Yeah.
So I finished up my term in the Middle East, and instead of continuing working, I went to a sex store in Philadelphia and pleaded with them to hire me with no experience. And they did, and they allowed me to get different certifications and learn how to teach workshops and engaging with customers and clientele from all backgrounds. And I then ended up at the Museum of Sex in New York City, where the clientele was, you know, instead of 10 people a day. I was seeing 1,000 people a day and dealing with people from ages 18 to 80, a variety of sexualities and backgrounds and religions, and people who, you know, are 75 and have never had an orgasm, and an 18-year-old who, you know, is a virgin but likes fingering. And so it was kind of all these different things that I had started experiencing. And so I was like, okay, you know, this is where I'm supposed to be. So
I love that.
I have a certification in sexual pleasure and health, and I've got some other sex ed experience and whatnot. So I now do a lot of consulting on products, and then a lot of consulting on sexual health and pleasure, and kind of just advocating for sexual freedom and exploration.
So I think you and Laura have a lot of things in common, which is like you're gutsy. You don't let someone tell you no, and you just keep going no matter what. And whether that means, I mean, you both essentially changed careers to pursue
Right.
what you're doing now.
And it's such a male, honestly, it's such a male dominated industry as well, that if you don't, you know, keep going and are persistent, you're going to get walked on so easily.
Yeah.
But you came from like, you both came from one male dominated sphere directly into another one.
Wait, you forget. Before that, I was in the Navy.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So
I mean, I loved it,
No,
but I was like, I'm gonna run this bitch, just so you all know.
that's phenomenal. So, I mean, I think that speaks a lot to your character, both of you having really strong character and personality. And I applaud you both. I think that's phenomenal. And I also love what you're talking about with sex work, because I think that what's really important there is that there's a combination of not being able to have conversations about sex unless they're couched in a certain kind of context. Hang on one second. That's actually a child. Go away. One of my kids trying to get in. I'm like, go away. Yeah, the beauty of Zooming from home. But then the other thing is that the secondary context is that it's negative, right? So Jack the Ripper is murdering prostitutes. Women's sexuality either has to be for men's pleasure, or they're punished for it, or, you know, we have to have toys that look like penises. And you guys have totally flipped all the scripts on all of that. So I'm super impressed. And I'm also grateful because it's really nice to see, you're both younger than I am for sure, but it's wonderful to see a generation of women who are taking a sex positive approach and really pushing the envelope with information, communication, technology, and all of that. So thank you.
My grandmother appreciates it because she gets some good presents. Every year she's getting something new. I've gotten her like wands and Kegel balls and like what, and I know everything about every single person's vulva in my family.
Oh my God.
You know, my grandmother will be like, hey, I'm a little dry. I'm like, I got you. And it wasn't like that, right? When I got my period, when I was 11, they're like, you have the curse. And now everyone's like, so what's the latest toy that I can use? Blah, 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 you know?
Like all of my mom's friends, it's hilarious. So like, we really want to try this such and such, and they're like, does it work for it? I'm like, yeah.
Oh my God, that's genius. Okay, so then so let's segue in. So how do we have these conversations about sexuality? How do we have conversations about wanting to expand kind of like the universe of things that we're willing to try? And how do then we find those things? How do we know what's right for us? I mean, there's a lot that goes into having a good time, alone and with someone. And as we learned in our group not that long ago, I mean, hardly anyone, and like you said, Laura, no one's really been doing a lot of research about this. Ironically, even though we've all been on this planet for the same duration of time, people just don't know a lot about it. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest until now in expanding that knowledge. So help us.
I think it absolutely starts with just self-exploration. I actually liken sexuality and sexual exploration a lot to being an entrepreneur. It's Like you're never going to get there. You're never going to get to that next level unless you just start. You have to start. You just have to try. And I have discovered more about myself, literally just exploring myself sexually than I have in most aspects of life. I mean, just understanding like what is consent, what are the things that I really want, what is advocating for myself and my pleasure, and what does that look like. And when I actually find that I'm able to endeavor to actually pursue my own pleasure and the things that I want and actually explore myself and my own body, that does a lot of things for me. That and it does a lot of things for other people that do that as well. It allows you to feel a little bit more comfortable in your own skin, a little bit more comfortable in your sexuality. When you're comfortable in your sexuality, you're more comfortable in your identity. If you're comfortable in your identity, you're more confident in the way that you show up in the world. If you're more confident, that allows you to be empowered and go out and do really amazing things, whether that is in business, in conversations with your partner, in taking a dance class that you've never taken before. Allowing yourself to feel that kind of confidence starts with your sexuality, but you have to start is the biggest thing. I get a lot of that, the same question around entrepreneurialism. What's your biggest, what's your best piece of advice for somebody that wants to start being an entrepreneur? Just start.
Yeah.
Like, if you get that kind of hang back and like, oh, I'm just going to wait for the best opportunity, that opportunity is going to pass you by. So it's getting started, and the rest will come, because I mean, and that kind of means two things. You'll come too, right? So when you get there, you start building that confidence, and you're able to actually turn around and be like, hey, guess what? I know that we thought that I liked this thing, but it turns out I actually like this thing. And that starts to build confidence within your communication as well. So it's really just break the ice. Start with yourself. It doesn't mean you have to start with a partner. I actually highly recommend, instead of trying to break the ice with your partner first, do it with yourself first. I have a lot of couples that were calling in early on, and they're like, and I was talking to a lot of wives and partners that were really frustrated with product because they were trying to make it work for the both of them, and then they weren't figuring it out. They were getting frustrated. They would get frustrated with each other, and then they would stop. And my best piece of advice was, take that thing, shut the door, kick his ass out, and go play with yourself.
Yeah.
Enjoy yourself, figure it out on your own, and then you tell his ass what to do.
Which it makes perfect sense.
For some partners to accept that, it is. You know,
yeah.
They don't want to feel as if they're being replaced, or they're not.
No.
You know,
but it's intimidating trying to have that conversation with a partner staring at you, and that was.
It sounds like in the bedroom, like every place else, communication is so critical. And if you don't know how to communicate with someone, you're really, it's just not going to happen. But so Kit, you're talking to 1,000 people a day.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, it does come up. People want to get toys and they have a partner, and a lot of it is, well, what if my partner thinks it'll replace them? What do I say to them then? They're sensitive. They'll think something's wrong. And, it's kind of always emphasizing the fact that it's, I always say, get a toy that can be ambiguous and can be used by both partners together. So you're expanding on the experience that you use. I like to use I like to describe it as ice cream, and it's summer, so everyone likes ice cream, right? So ice cream's delicious. You love the way it tastes. It feels great. Sometimes you want fucking sprinkles on your ice cream, and that's what adding a pleasure product does. You're just adding sprinkles. It's not taking away from the ice cream. It doesn't make it absolutely better. It's sprinkles. It's an additive. It's an extra part that you can enjoy. Take away the sprinkles, it's still good. And it kind of brings it to that basic level. You're like, okay, I'm not bringing something in to replace someone. I'm bringing something in to just enhance the experience. And kind of, I also do it with do you want a beer on draft or in the bottle? Right. It just, either way, it's a beer and you like it. And it's kind of, I always say, use non-threatening products at first. Find something that you two can both enjoy. And make sure, it's about comfort. It's about conversation and communication. And I think that's probably the most essential part.
Makes perfect sense. And I would imagine that just as with any contentious issue, it's rarely about the thing, it's about something else. So I can imagine that, you know, if you're having a bigger conversation about someone being afraid of being replaced or usurped in the bedroom, that's probably a larger context conversation. It's not really about the toy, it's about some other things that you might want to discuss outside and inside the bedroom. But what a good icebreaker. And you can kind of figure out where you are with your partner or partners or yourself in the process of exploring all
I
this.
really enjoy cock rings, right? So cock rings go around the penis, and they're meant to keep it harder longer by preventing blood flow from leaving. But some of them vibrate, and they'll hit the partner that's being penetrated. Cock rings are great because they don't necessarily have to just go on the partner's penis. You can put it around your fingers, and it adds vibration. So you can use it if you have a partner who has a penis for hand jobs or blow jobs to enhance the sensation. You know, it's something that can easily be used in different ways to please both partner without being like, hey, you know, you're not lasting so long and you're not really pleasing me. Can we put this on you? You know, so finding creative ways to use toys as well, I think is really fun.
Excellent.
I think just to kind of like add on to what I was saying earlier, I'm not saying like kick somebody out of the bedroom. I'm definitely just, it's to us, and to me particularly, it's a lot more about education and understanding your own body. So like how we position OSE, particularly because it's an intimidating looking toy.
Sure.
And especially, and I've had men actually say like, oh, that's intimidating. Are you trying to replace me? And the answer to that is pretty simple. If you want to, I think if you can accept that product is not just for orgasms, but for self-exploration, to understand where those pleasure points are, how, like, this product literally will help you find those pleasure points and actually figure out what kind of frequency, what kind of intensity you like on those particular spots. Then she can actually go, okay, this is actually how I like it. And they can actually communicate that back to their partner. I actually had one of my favorite reviews on OSE too was, you know, I chose this because I read the vibrating toys might damage nerves, but, you know, makes it harder to orgasm over time. But the takeaway here was this, despite that problem being solved with OSE, he was still hesitant and didn't want to be replaced in the bedroom. Took a leap of faith and it worked out. He says that they used it together and it really helped up to spice up their sex lives. And he says, I may actually enjoy watching her orgasm more than she does now. That to me, like, that speaks volumes. Like, that allows him to be so much more appreciative of her pleasure.
Yeah, I think that's actually beautiful. And I think that I know that we're gonna end the public portion of our talk now,